I made $10,000 trading forex. This whole experience of trading has been really eye-opening to me. I had no idea what to really expect when it came to trying to find ways to make money online, but it's been a long journey. So there's three main lessons that I've learned on this journey towards making $10,000. I wish I could show every payout that I've actually gotten. Most of the payouts have come from the prop firms, or so-called, they're not actually prop firms, but they're called prop firms. If you're really into finance, you understand what I'm saying. If you're not, then just consider them to be prop firms. Okay, so prop firms. I've used them. I've had a good time with them, but they've taught me the first of these three things I want to go over. These prop firms have taught me something about the importance of leveraging resources to your advantage. And that's my first lesson that I learned, which is that if you want to get somewhere in the business world, you have to leverage your resources to your advantage. People told me that going into college, everything was a meritocracy in the business world. Yeah, that started to bother me though, because when I think about people like the richest entrepreneurs in the world, like Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, they didn't get to where they are by studying in school and getting good grades and passing exams. That can get you a good job, yes, and that's very important. But in order to get to those upper echelons of what we consider to be the business world, or even society, if you will, you have to learn to leverage the resources that are available to you. And that's one thing that really got me into this whole trading thing. I was in school studying hard, studying super hard for exams, going to office hours, trying to figure out the best ways to learn and all that stuff. But then it just dawned on me that why am I doing all this work? I'm seeing people who get the results that I want to have. They don't have a linear career path. They aren't going to jobs and moving up the ranks. The people who are really doing what I wanted to do, even they didn't necessarily get the amount of money or careers that were necessarily proportionate to the amount of effort that they put into their studying to get to those careers, if that makes sense. So I was like, how can I learn more about how to leverage resources that are available? So that's how I got into trading. But specifically with these prop firms are a game changer. They have been a game changer for a while. Even like 10 years ago, we didn't have all these prop firms in the space. What these prop firms do is that they give the everyday person the chance to get access to larger capital than they otherwise would if they had to trade personal funds. Most everyday people don't have $30,000 to just throw into a trading account. We're in school, we're trying to pay off student loans, paying bills. But what these prop firms do is they allow you to get access to larger amounts of capital, so to speak. A lot of people have a lot of things to say about these firms, and they are pretty controversial, but I think at the end of the day, if you want to get quicker access to larger amounts of funds, then you have to use them. You kind of just have to play that game. So what these firms did is they allow people like me who didn't really have funds to just throw into an account to get access to more capital and trade it. People who were starting to trade like 10 years ago, they didn't have access to, as much of these firms as people do now. I know that in some countries, these firms are getting banned, so it could be an issue, but generally they are pretty much like the easiest advantage that anyone who is trying to trade and isn't trying to do this for like a full-time career can get access to funds by. This is a huge deal. It's a huge deal. Through doing that, I was able to get accounts on multiple firms, increase my lot sizes on trades, enter bigger positions than I otherwise would have been able to. And then that helped me to get more money, basically. If I did that with my personal account, I might have gotten, some wins, but it wouldn't have been the same. It wouldn't have been able to help me to at least pay off a few months of my credit card payments. The second thing that I learned is that there's no perfect strategy for trading in general, whether it's on a prop firm account or not. A lot of people actually trade for a full-time career. Like this is their job. This is their bread and butter. They do this day in, day out, and they have access to funds that the everyday person would only be able to dream of. And of course, a lot of times these funds aren't the same amount of funds that they would have if they were trading a personal account. Like a lot of these people in fields like investment banking, they have access to like ridiculous amounts of capital. Even so, like everyone has certain targets they want to hit, whether that's in your professional job or in your personal trading account. Everyone wants to make a certain amount of money or at least gain a certain percentage on their account. And so how do you do that? You have to make sure that you trade in a way that's beneficial to you, that makes sense to you, and that ultimately gets the desired returns for whoever's asking for them. So if that's your manager, you need to make sure that you earn enough to please your manager. You have to make sure that you earn enough in order to meet those goals. If that's just you, you have to make sure that, you're trading in a way that makes sense, that helps you to reach those goals. So when you look at making money in these markets, there's so many different ways to do it. There's not really like one set strategy. I've been in a bunch of different trading communities where people who are trading are sharing their strategies, discussing ways to approach the charts. Everyone has their own unique view and their own unique style when it comes to looking at a chart. I can look at a chart and see a buying trade. Someone else can look at it and see a selling trade. Everyone has their own pizzazz. When I started out in trading on prop firms, that was a bit of an issue, which can be a good thing and a bad thing. When I was starting out with these prop firms, a lot of them had time limits, so you had to make sure that you would gain a certain percentage within a certain amount of days. And so people who like to swing trade and take their time with things, I couldn't always listen to what they were saying because there was no time horizon set for them to get the desired outcome for their trade. So if they wanted to enter a buy position on a specific pair and just hold it for the whole month, I couldn't do that because after the month was over, my evaluation process would have been done. That would have meant that I couldn't have made it to the next phase and ultimately getting the funded account. So everyone has their own unique style, their own unique view of the charts. Some people like to scalp. Scalping's really good because if you need that money fast, then you can get it fast. It's also really risky because if you lose a lot, then you lose a lot fast. I like to do a mix of both. I like to pick and choose bits and pieces of strategies from people here and there. I think that's pretty much what everyone should do, because if you try to just listen to one person, that's not really going to help you when you're managing larger amounts of capital. And the reason for that is because you're going to get very attached emotionally to the trades. You're going to get very emotionally attached to the money as you see it, especially when you're in drawdown. When you're in drawdown, you're going to see that you're losing $200. $200 turns into 400, turns into 1,000, then 2,000, and like 5,000, and then like what? Okay, now you're knocked out of the challenge. You got to start over, buy a new prop firm account, and repeat the whole process. Nobody wants to do that. But once you get into that position, who are you going to blame? Yourself or someone else whose strategy you took? It doesn't really matter at the end of the day because you are the one that lost the account. You're the one that decides to enter those trades. You can only look at the action that was taken by you, despite maybe listening to someone else's strategy. When you strategy hop too much, you go from trying to follow the techniques of this particular trader, only trading in this particular session, only trading in these particular pairs, and you're going to lose yourself in how you trade because trading is a personal thing. It's not about trying to mimic someone else because how someone decides to enter a trade can vary by different factors. Some people like to look at candlestick patterns. Other people like to look at what they call supply and demand zones. People like to look at lower time frames. Other people like to look at higher time frames. There's just so many approaches. You can't really take all of them. And you can't take one of them from one person either, because at the end of the day, it's about how you see the markets. If you try to copy someone else's strategy, you won't be copying their strategy because everything is subjective. There's a really strong emphasis on intuition in this space. And if you don't operate with that intuition, then no matter how robotic you trade, following all of your rules to the T, you still might not trade optimally because you have to figure out what are the patterns that you've identified, what looks likely to happen to you. The reason why all this is so important is because trading isn't really something where there's a set way to do things, because prices don't always follow a logical process. It's not like accounting where there's certain rules, or physics where there's like certain laws. Like sometimes things just happen, and there's so many players in these different markets that there's no way for one person to know how the market is going to play out. So why would you try to follow someone's strategy based off of what they think? Like, it's about what you think. It's subjective. Things are constantly changing. The dynamics of the market are constantly changing. There's not really a reason to try to figure it all out. Just develop a strategy that works best for you. That's what I've learned. So just developing a strategy that works best for you is what is best to do, in my opinion. And the third thing that I learned is that this whole concept of making money online, it is real. It is so real. Like, I came in and I was skeptical just like everyone else. When you see people who are making, 6-7 figures and you're making $100, you see influencers online making a huge amount of money on their live accounts, it might be a bit discouraging. I thought, oh, there's no way that people can be making this much money. And it's not just people who are actually knowledgeable about finance. I saw people who were truck drivers making a lot of money as they drove throughout the day. This trading space has been gatekept for so long, but now we have the opportunity as everyday people to participate. And this is not going to last forever. So now is the time to actually get involved. I've seen people who do things like completely not related to trading or business at all, who are deciding to trade on their free time and they're making money from it. And they're not just making $5 or $10. They're making a lot of money because they've taken advantage of this opportunity, even though they, on paper, are not necessarily finance or trading people, which I think is really cool to see because we live in a day and age where there is such a huge wealth gap in the world, and there's such a large amount of how to say this, like elitism in society, and that's like a whole nother topic that could be explored on its own. To see people who are getting the chance to take part in this marketplace is amazing. It's really cool to see. But at the same time, like we see the large influencers online making 6-7 figures a month. They got the penthouse, they got the Lambos, they're traveling the world, and it's like, okay, cool. That's not really achievable for the everyday person. Well, first of all, maybe that's not what you want out of life. We see like the withdrawals, the payouts from these different prop firms, and we're like, oh, like there's no way. There's no way. Like I couldn't do that. But just to see that it's actually possible for someone like me who had no background in finance at all to participate in this market, to achieve 5 figures and use that money to lessen some of the stress in life. I think that's really, really cool. I would just say that if you are on the fence about these prop firms, time is ticking and you need to figure out a way to get involved. I would do that, and I would do that soon.